It started with a feeling I couldn't ignore. Not a loud warning, not something obvious, nothing dramatic, just a quiet, persistent thought sitting in the back of my mind. The kind of feeling you try to shake off, but it keeps coming back, again and again, telling you something isn't right. At first, I didn't take it seriously. I mean, why would I? Everything in my life seemed normal, peaceful even. Until the day I opened my water bill, and everything changed. Because my water bill had tripled. Not slightly increased, not a small difference. Tripled. I remember just standing there, staring at the number, reading it once, then again, and then one more time, hoping I had read it wrong, but I hadn't. And the strangest part, I wasn't even home most of the time. That's what didn't make sense. I lived alone. I worked long hours. Some days I barely used any water at all, so how could the bill be this high? At first, I tried to explain it logically. It's probably a mistake. That was my first thought. Billing errors happen all the time, right? Maybe they charged me incorrectly. Maybe there was a system issue. So I didn't panic. Not yet. Then came the second thought. Maybe there's a leak. That felt more realistic. A hidden pipe leak. Something underground. Something I couldn't see. That would explain the sudden increase. So I decided to check everything. I went room by room. Slowly. Carefully. Listening. Watching. Paying attention to every little detail. The kitchen? Dry. Clean. Silent. The bathroom? No dripping taps, no running water. The pipes? No strange noises, no hissing, no pressure sounds. Nothing. I even checked outside. The walls, the ground, the areas near the pipes. No wet spots, no puddles, no signs of leakage. Everything looked exactly the way it should. Perfectly normal. And somehow, that made it even worse.
Because if nothing was wrong, then where was all that water going? That question stayed in my mind. Quiet, but heavy. And that's when the doubt started creeping in. Slowly. Almost unnoticeable at first. But once it started, it didn't stop. You see, I had just moved into that house not too long ago. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a quieter life, away from noise, stress, and crowded spaces. This place felt different. Calm. Peaceful. The kind of neighborhood where people mind their own business, where nothing unusual ever happens. Or at least, that's what I believed. My neighbor, Diane, was one of the first people I met after moving in. She seemed friendly, approachable, the kind of neighbor you'd feel lucky to have. Every morning, she'd wave. Sometimes she'd smile and ask how I was doing. Occasionally, we'd exchange a few words over the fence. Nothing deep, nothing personal, just simple, polite conversation. And honestly, I appreciated that. It made the place feel welcoming, safe, normal. But now, when I look back at those moments, something feels different. Because not everything was as innocent as it seemed. At the time, I didn't notice it. Or maybe I chose not to. Because the signs were small. Very small. The kind of things most people would ignore. Like my garden hose. I remember one day I left it neatly coiled near the tap, exactly where I always kept it. But the next morning, it was slightly out of place. Not completely moved, just different. As if someone had used it and tried to put it back. I paused for a moment when I saw it, but then I shrugged it off. Maybe I forgot. That's what I told myself. It happens, right? You use something, and later you don't remember. So I ignored it. But then it happened again, a few days later. Same thing. The hose slightly moved. Not enough to prove anything, but enough to feel strange. And then there was the outdoor tap. Sometimes, when I touched it, it felt loose, like it had been turned recently.
even on days I clearly remembered not using it. That feeling, that tiny moment of confusion, started happening more often, and each time I gave myself the same explanation. I must be overthinking. I probably forgot. It's nothing. But deep down, a part of me wasn't convinced. Still, I didn't act on it. Not yet. Because none of it was solid proof. Just small, disconnected moments. Until that water bill arrived. That was the turning point. Because suddenly, everything connected. The hose, the tap, the strange feeling, the unexplained water usage. It all started to form a pattern. And for the first time, I allowed myself to think something I had been avoiding. What if this isn't a mistake? What if someone is using my water? The moment that thought entered my mind, everything changed. Because now, I wasn't just confused anymore. I was suspicious. And once suspicion begins, it's hard to ignore. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. Because that would mean someone was entering my space, using my property without permission. And that's not a small thing. That's personal. Very personal. But no matter how much I tried to dismiss the idea, it kept coming back, stronger each time. And slowly, my mind started narrowing down the possibilities. Who could it be? It had to be someone nearby, someone who knew the layout of my house, someone who felt comfortable enough to walk into my yard without hesitation. And that's when the answer became impossible to ignore. Diane. She was the only one close enough, the only one who had easy access, the only one who wouldn't immediately stand out. But even then, I hesitated, because accusing someone like that is serious. You can't just go to your neighbor and say, "Hey, I think you're stealing my water." Not without proof.
Not without certainty. Because if you're wrong, you destroy trust. You create conflict. You turn a peaceful place into something uncomfortable. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. So instead of reacting, I made a decision. I needed to be sure. Not almost sure. Not guessing. Certain. I needed proof. Real proof. Something I could see. Something I could show. Something that couldn't be denied. Because if I was going to face this, I had to do it the right way. No assumptions, no accusations without evidence. Just the truth, clear and undeniable. And at that moment, standing there with that bill in my hand, I realized something important. I was about to uncover something I wasn't prepared for. Something hidden, something intentional. And whether I liked it or not, I was about to find out the truth. Once that thought entered my mind, I couldn't ignore it anymore. It wasn't just a passing suspicion anymore. It wasn't a fleeting idea I could brush off. It became a lens through which I saw everything around me. Every small action Diane took suddenly seemed suspicious. Nothing felt ordinary anymore. Her lawn, for example, it had always been nice, sure, but now it seemed almost unreal. Fresh, perfect, lush, vibrant. Like someone was watering it constantly, meticulously, obsessively. I started noticing small details I had overlooked before. Her driveway sparkled more than it had before. Sometimes she was washing it not just once, but twice in a single day. A little unusual, yes, but harmless, maybe. And then I saw the pool. A small inflatable pool set up in her yard, filled with water. More than once. I didn't think much at first, until I realized something. I had never seen her turn on her own water. No hose, no faucet running, nothing. Yet somehow that pool was always full. Her lawn was always green. Her driveway always sparkling. It didn't add up. And the more I watched, the clearer it became. Something was definitely wrong. Something intentional. I needed proof. I couldn't rely on suspicion anymore. I
I had to know for sure, so I made a decision. I set up a small security camera. It was positioned carefully, facing the side of my house where the outdoor tap was, hidden enough that it wouldn't be noticed, but clear enough to capture every detail. Then, I waited. The first day passed. Nothing happened. The second day, still nothing. For a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it really was just a coincidence. But by the third day, everything changed. I remember the exact moment I saw it. Scrolling through the footage late at night, exhausted and tense. Hours of nothing. And then, her, Diane, walking straight into my yard.
No hesitation, no nervous glances, just calm, confident steps. She moved like she had every right to be there, like my yard wasn't even mine. She paused for just a moment, a quick glance around, as if checking if anyone was watching. Then she walked directly to the tap, turned it on, connected a hose, and ran it across the fence into her yard. I just sat there, frozen, trying to process what I had just seen. Because this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't some random coincidence. This was deliberate. And it didn't stop there. I watched for days. Every time I checked the footage, the story repeated itself. Different times of day, sometimes early morning, sometimes late at night. Always quick, always calculated. It was obvious she thought she would never get caught. And the more I watched, the more I realized this had been going on for weeks, maybe even months. Every time I wasn't around, she was using my water, filling her pool, watering her lawn, washing her driveway, all at my expense. And the worst part, every time we saw each other, she acted completely normal, smiling, waving, chatting casually over the fence, like nothing was happening. I couldn't believe it. The audacity, the sheer boldness of someone pretending to be friendly, while secretly taking advantage of me. And that's when I realized I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't just let it happen. Something had to change. I had to take control of the situation. I had to confront the reality. I had to act. Because if I didn't, this would continue. And it wouldn't just be a one-time problem. It would be a recurring invasion, a silent theft that no one else would notice. And deep down I knew, once you let someone cross a line like that, it's almost impossible to put it back where it belongs. So I decided then and there, I was going to catch her. I was going to prove it, and I was going to stop it. I didn't know how exactly I would confront her yet, but I knew one thing. I couldn't let this continue, because some things aren't just about money. They're about respect, boundaries, and protecting your own space. And Diane had completely ignored that. By the time I decided to confront her, I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't doubtful. I wasn't questioning my own judgment. I wasn't merely suspicious. I was certain. And the proof was in my hands. Clear, undeniable, recorded on video. Every single moment she had trespassed, every drop of water she had taken, captured for the world, or at least for me, to see. I remember walking over to her house that afternoon. Each step I took felt heavier than the last. Not because I was afraid of her, not because I doubted myself. It was the weight of knowing that this conversation, this single moment, could change everything. I approached the door slowly, knocked once, then twice. A pause. A few seconds later, it opened. There she stood. Same smile, same friendly expression she always wore, like nothing had ever happened. "Hey," she said cheerfully. But this time, I didn't smile back. I kept my voice calm, steady, measured, because I knew I had the upper hand, and I wasn't here to argue. I was here to speak the truth. "I know you've been using my water," I said. For a split second, I saw it. That brief flicker in her eyes, a flash of recognition.
Then she blinked, and just as quickly tried to cover it. "Must be a mistake," she said. "No way I would do that," she added, trying to sound casual. "I think you're misunderstanding something," she insisted. But I was ready for this. I pulled out my phone, opened the footage, and showed it to her. Everything. Every step. Every drop. Everything captured in crystal clear evidence. Her smile faltered. Her voice trembled. Her confidence disappeared. Now there was silence. Then came the excuses. "I only did it a few times. I didn't think it was a big deal. I was going to tell you, but none of it made sense anymore, because I had seen the truth. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't an accident."
This was a habit, a choice, and it had cost me more than money. It had cost me trust. It had cost me peace of mind. It had shaken my sense of security in my own home. I took a deep breath, kept my voice calm but firm. "You have two choices," I said. "Either you pay for the extra water you've used and stop immediately, or I take this further." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I simply stated the facts, the consequences, the options. After a long pause, she nodded. She agreed. She paid for the water she had stolen. And just like that, it was over. Or at least, it should have been. Because something had changed. Not just between us, but in the way I saw everything. I installed a lock on my outdoor tap, upgraded my security cameras, made sure there would never be another opportunity for anyone to take advantage of me again. But beyond the physical changes, there was a lesson I will never forget. Not everyone who seems friendly respects your boundaries. Not everyone who smiles has good intentions. Some people are opportunists. Some people are willing to cross lines without a second thought. And sometimes, the ones closest to you, the ones you see and trust every day, are the ones you need to watch the most. These days, Diane doesn't wave anymore. No smiles. No casual conversations. No small talk over the fence. Just silence. And honestly, I prefer it that way. Because peace isn't just about quiet surroundings, or a nice lawn, or a calm street. True peace comes from knowing your space is yours, protected, untouchable, safe. And that is worth more than anything else. So, if there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's to trust your instincts, to notice the small signs, to pay attention when something feels off, because ignoring those feelings, or dismissing those subtle signals, can cost you more than just money. It can cost your sense of security.
Your trust in the people around you, your peace of mind, and no one should have that kind of power over you, not even someone who smiles at you every morning.